Sukiyotu, and welcome to the Buddhist Mahavihara's Dhammadana series. We are here on our Facebook page, going live this evening from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And we are actually very proud and happy that we have with us for the first time a bhikkhuni, a Sayalay, who is currently based in Myanmar. And this is also her first appearance here at the Buddhist Mahavihara's Dhammadana series. Uh, I would like to invite Sayalay Panna Theri to join us in the studio. Good evening, Sayalay.
Good evening.
And
Yeah,
welcome
thank
to
you.
Buddhist Mahavihara's Facebook page. And we're going live right now. For those of you who are not familiar with Sayalay Panna Theri, let me just quickly give a simple introduction so that you understand what Sayalay Panna Theri has been doing. Venerable Panna Theri is a Theravada Buddhist nun, and she is a Myanmar citizen. She has completed an MA in Buddhist Studies at the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies at the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka in 2018. She received the Gold Medal Award in 2017 during the MA program. Currently, she is a PhD candidate at the Shan State Buddhist University in Myanmar and is undertaking her PhD thesis on grief, Soka, management, and Buddhist psychology. She's also lecturing in Theravada Buddhist meditations in theory and practice and study skills, the academic way of learning Buddhism, modules at the postgraduate diploma and MA programs at the Shan State Buddhist University. Her primary interest is the integration of Theravada Buddhist psychological teachings into contemporary Western psychotherapies. With regard to meditation, she's familiar with Satipatthana, Samatha, and also Vipassana meditation practices of the different traditions in Myanmar. Recently, she had established her own center called Bodhi Theri Meditation Center in Taungi, I think that's how it's pronounced, in Myanmar, and is also undertaking online meditation retreats and Dhamma teachings. On the same score, I would like to also, that's the word, also very grateful to Brother Suminda Srinath in Sri Lanka, who has graciously helped us to connect us with Sayalay Panna Theri to organize this Dhamma sharing. And our deepest gratitude to Brother Suminda for doing this for us here at the Buddhist Mahavihara. So without much ado, I would now like to invite Sayalay Panna to start this evening's Dhamma sharing. Sayalay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tilat, for introducing me to the audience. Good evening, everyone. So once, thanks again for inviting me to give a Dhamma talk online. I'm glad and honored to join you all here tonight. I feel this kind of program is very beneficial for those who like to learn about Buddhist teachings, and it can generate many merits for the monastic members like us and who can have opportunities to give Dhamma talks. So, and also please accept my sincere thanks for the excellent support of the Buddhist Mahavihara, Malaysia. And I also thank the main sponsor of this Dhamma talk. I think there are 5 families tonight who supported this Dhamma sharing program. So may they and their family members be free from danger. May they be peaceful and blessed by the triple gem. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So before I start my Dhamma talk, may I pay respect to the triple gem first. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So today, my Dhamma talk, let me share my slides here. Okay, so I will have 4 parts. In my talk, there will be the 4 parts here. So first is what is grief, and second is Buddhist concept of grief, and third is Buddhist concept of loss, and the last is the Buddhist concept of love. Okay, so what is grief? So here, grief is generally interpreted as a natural emotional response to the loss of loved one. So, for example, we lost our parents, we lost our better half, or we lost our children, something like that. So, when we face with the loss, then we have grief. So, and the next one is grief is another component, that is the close relationship. If we don't have close relationship, we don't have grief. Although there are many people that are dying in the world, but if there's no close relationship with those people, we don't feel grief. Grief involves close relationship with a person or a thing that we attach. And a grief relates not only losing a relationship with a human being, but also to any object that we love or attach. So sometimes we lost a job, sometimes we lost our wealth or our properties and our houses or cars, something, then we feel grief. We experience grief. So we can generally say that grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved one. So this is the statement that I like to talk about tonight. This is a part of my PhD thesis that currently what I'm writing now. And I'm interested in the Buddhist psychology especially, so I chose the grief. And I try to relate this English term to a Pali term, Soka. Soka, not worry. Some people they translate that worry. Soka is worry, but worry is before the loss. Before the loss, we worry something. We worry to lose something, to lose someone. But grief is it's happened after the loss. After the loss, so that it's different. So in my opinion, I think we should translate Soka as grief. So grief, this is the main statement for tonight. I like to analyze here. The grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved ones. So you can look at here, we have 3 parts: grief, loss, and love, right? So here, grief, so I'll discuss grief, the Buddhist concept of grief, and loss, Buddhist concept of loss, and love, the types of love in Buddhist teaching. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the Buddhist concept of grief. So in Buddhism, there are 3 related terms of grief, Soka. So here's Soka, Parideva, and Upayasa. So Soka is the bereavement due to the loss of loved one, and Parideva, in English we call lamentation. So lamentation is when we encounter the loss, we cannot control our mind. Then we have out of control. Then we try to weep aloud. Sometimes, oh mother, please don't leave me, something like that. Oh son, please don't leave me. Like that. So and we cannot control our emotion, then the sound coming out. So that is the stage of parideva, that is the stage of lamentation. And upayasa is the most intense sadness. That is the highest level of grieving. In some cases, it can cause suicidal cases, like the self-harm, because that individual cannot control the negative emotion, cannot cope with the grief. Then it becomes more intense, then it can cause self-harm. So we can see these three terms in the Buddhist doctrine, such as the Four Noble Truths, or the dependent origination, Paticcasamuppada, or the Mahasatipatthana Sutta is very famous sutta in the Buddhist canon. So we can see these three terms in the Buddhist doctrines. So here I have drawn some pictures to illustrate these three terms: Soka, Parideva, and Upayasa. So grief is a boiling stage. For example, when we put some oil in a pot, then the boiling stage, the grief is like it's a hot oil inside a pot over a slow fire. It's not very intense yet. The fire is not very strong yet. But the lamentation parideva stage is boiling over stage. It's like boiling water inside the pot. So it's boiling. So it's boiling over from the pot. Then when oil is cooked over a massive fire, so it's coming out. Then we can of course we can hear the sound at the stage. Lamentation stage, it makes the sound already. But the grief is nobody can notice because we feel inside. We feel inside. But lamentation stages, the other people can notice because we have sound already. In the upayasa, despair stage is drying up stage. So it's like what remains in the pot water after boiling over stage is dry up already. There's no oil inside. There's no water inside. It's dry up within the pot. So that is the highest stage of that emotion. Okay, so here we can check, is grief a mental illness or not? So let's look at from the Western psychological and Buddhist perspective. So from modern psychological perspective, there are ongoing debates in modern psychology and psychotherapy about whether and when grief can be considered either normal or pathological. So psychiatrists have long understood that grief should not be treated as pathological. According to Sigmund Freud, grief is a natural process that should not be tampered with. So there are different opinions among researchers and scholars and grief specialists regarding this particular issue. Is grief a mental illness or just a normal response? Soka is a mental disorder or it's a normal? So let's talk about the Buddhist perspective for human illness. So since we are human, so we are composed of mind and matter, right? Mind and body. It is called nama and rupa. So human illness can only be connected with mind and body. So we call bodily illness is kayika roga and mental illness is cetasika roga. So Buddhism sees that human illness occurs intrinsically since we are born. Since we become a human, the illness is already there, already within us, so that we will be ill in terms of bodily or mentally. So these things are very common to all of us, according to the Buddhist understanding. In modern medical science, they have very specific criteria, very specific symptoms of mental illness or mental disorder to diagnose. For example, DSM or the we call this. It's from the manual for the psychiatrics. For all mental disorders, they have kind of specific criteria and specific symptoms. So Buddhism considered that illness is common to every beings, everyone in this world, and mental afflictions such as normal grief or normal physical illnesses these are the dukkha. These are intrinsic suffering according to the Buddhist understanding. So if we look at the human illness, there are two types. One is mental illness and physical illness. So for mental illness is we call Cetasika Roga, that is normal grief. And then Umada. Umada is the stage of pathological. It's out of control already. It's normal stage. So pathological illness, mental illness, madness, that we can see in the Jataka story as well. Here, Cetasika Roga is just the normal illness. So in these days, a psychiatric or a psychotherapist may not treat a person as a mental patient unless he is having certain pathological symptoms or meeting a criteria as classified in the DSM or ICD. So DSM is Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, issued by the American Psychiatric Association. And ICD is issued by the WHO, World Health Organization. So they have the classified criteria or symptoms, so that according to the symptoms, the psychiatric or psychotherapeutic, they treat a person. So that the normal person is not treated as a mental patient. That is the key concept found in the modern psychiatry and psychotherapy. But in Buddhist understanding, the Buddhist concept of mental illness, Buddhism treats every ordinary person is mentally ill. That is the different thing. So here, the mental illness in Buddhist psychology. So Buddhism considered that mental illness is common to all ordinary beings, and mental afflictions such as Soka, Parideva, Dominasa, Dukkha, Dominasa, Upayasa, those are intrinsic suffering. It's a Dukkha Satta. So it's the Dukkha in Buddhist psychology. So there are two main concepts that we can find in the Buddhism and Buddhist literature. First is every enlightened person is mentally ill. So you may heard of it, Omatakoviyahi Putujana. So if we are Putujana, if we are enlightened person, of course we all are mentally ill, because we have defilements. We have hatred, we have greed, hatred, and delusion, loba, dosa, moha, so that our mind is not healthy. So we are not mentally healthy. So this is the meaning. And the second point is even the enlightened ones, except arahants, the lower level of the Arya, lower level of the noble disciples, Sotapanna, Sakadagana, and Anagami. So Sakadagami and Anagami. So these three levels are yet mentally ill because they still have defilements, they still have kilesa. So this is the Buddhist concept of mental illness. Okay, let's talk about the Buddhist concept of loss. So there are 5 types of loss, okay, in Buddhism. Before I talk about this, let me say about something, the loss. So loss is very common. Yeah, loss is very common for all of us. For example, many of us experience loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are major losses due to this pandemic, such as the loss of our loved one through death. Okay, let me stop screen. So there are major losses due to this COVID-19 pandemic, such as we have loss of our loved ones to death. And in Buddhist teaching, that is the loss of relatives, or nyati pyasane, right? The second is the loss of our own health. We are affected by the COVID-19. Then coronavirus infection, so which can be called the loss of health, or in Pali we call roga pyasane. So loss of our own health due to the coronavirus infection and the death of a loved one due to the virus definitely endanger mental suffering, soka, grief, like that. So death due to COVID-19 are likely to be more painful for some reasons, because the death is really unanticipated during the pandemic period. The infected patient had to be separated from the loved ones due to the potential, the contagion, and so on. So as a result, many have died without the presence of the family members. And the worst thing is that family members are not able to mourn and grieve properly at the last moment of the loved ones. So they cannot mourn culturally, they cannot mourn religiously. So apart from the above major losses, other subsequences like secondary losses have been caused as well to spread of the COVID-19. So this pandemic has resulted in a large number of unemployment. So we have got the financial problems all over the world, financial hardship all over the world. It's the global issue, global problem we just faced recently. So subsequently, individual mental unhealthiness indirectly affects the whole global economic growth. So there are the losses of wealth. In Pali, we call boga vyasana. So these 3 types are we are experiencing these 3 types of loss in our daily life. This is very common. And so in the Buddhist concept of loss, this is the truth that everyone in every community is facing the loss, regardless of gender. Either we are female or male, we have to face the same. Regardless of nationality, or regardless of religion or socioeconomic status, regardless of our status, it's the same. So that in Satsavibinga Sutta and the Visuddhimagga and the Dispeller of Delusion, Sammoha Vinodani, they mention that these texts, this sutta states that the soka, or grief, denotes an emotional response to the 5 types of loss. So here I'll share the 5 types of loss. Okay. So 5 types of loss in Buddhism. So loss of relatives, loss of property or wealth, loss of health, loss of morality, and loss of view. So the last 2, loss of morality is sila vyasana, and loss of view is ditthi vyasana. So these are not discussed in the Buddhist, in the Western psychology. These two we can find only in the Buddhist psychology and Buddhism. So here again we have the question. We have the question. Okay, the grief is an emotional response to the loss of loved one. Then we can ask, does everyone experience grief when he or she encounters any form of loss? Does anyone experience grief when he or she encounter any form of loss? So I have two, I think we can answer in two ways. First thing is, yes, we can answer yes, because an ordinary people suffer from grief when they encounter the loss of loved ones. For example, in the Buddha's time, we have disciples. I think you all are very familiar with that. The Bhattacharya, she has the cumulative or the pathological grief due to the subsequent deaths of her two sons and her husband and her brother and her two parents, two father and mother. So she had the subsequent loss within a short time. So she became mad, and her grief was so intense. And similarly, the Kisa Gautami's intense grief of losing her one and only son, her beloved son. She lost her son. Then she became out of control. Then she experienced intense grief as well. Right? These are the disciples. Even in the Buddha's time, it was over 2,600 years ago. So it's the same until now in this modern day. So next, not only the ordinary disciples who grieve due to the death of loved ones, but also the stream witness like Ananda, Venerable Ananda. He grieved upon the death of Venerable Sariputta. He was a stream winner, Sotapanna. Still he experienced Seok, grief, and he cried. He lamented because upon the death of his teacher, Venerable Sariputta. Again, the Visakha, the female disciple, very famous female disciple Visakha. She was also a stream winner, Sotapanna, and her lamentation on the death of her granddaughter, and she went to the Buddha, and then she cried, and she talked to the Buddha. She was experiencing intense grief upon the death of her very cute and very lovely granddaughter. So in brief, despite the difference in time frame, grieving a loss is an inevitable part of our life and a major type of suffering that is common to all of us in this world. Okay, let me share the screen again. So we can answer to this question, does everyone experience grief when she encounter any form of loss? We can answer yes, because for ordinary people, yes, of course. Yeah. But we can answer we can have another answer that is no. For the noble disciple, such as Arahant, they do not suffer from grief due to the loss because they don't have loved ones. They already completely eradicated the defilements, including craving and attachment. So they don't have attached or loved ones. So based on these findings, I conclude that the cause of grief is dependent upon one's deep-seated attachment rather than the loss. So loss is not the root cause. Attachment, our love towards towards a person, a specific person, is the cause. So attachment, or we can say, okay, tanha or lust, raga, whatever we use, attachment is the root cause. But loss is just the trigger, we have attachment since we are born. Then with attachment, we attach the people, we attach the things, we attach, living things and non-living things. Then because of that attachment, when those our loved things disappeared forever, we have to say goodbye to them forever. So at that moment, we have grief. So loss is just the trigger. Okay, so let's talk about the Buddhist concept of love. We have three types of love found in the Buddhist literature. We can find in the Buddhist literature. First is Pema. There are two types of love: couple love, family love. Couple love is called Tanna Pema, and family love is called Gehasita Pema. Family love means like the love among the family members, among the siblings, right? Either or, our love towards father, mother, brother, sister. These all are family love. Gehasita Pema. And Tanna love is like the love towards the husband or the love towards our wife, like that. So both these type of loves involved attachment. This is called Pema, is quasi-sexual affection. This is then another third type of love is Metta. Metta is impersonal, unconditional, and then there's no attachment in Metta, this type of love. So we can call it like all-embracing love to all beings. So we don't have any discrimination. There's no difference between the stranger and our family member. We have Metta towards the same love towards all beings. So if we love with Metta, then we cannot experience grief or lamentation or despair. But if we love with attachment, if we have the couple love or family love, then it's a kind of dangerous. The more we have close relationship, the more we have attachment, then the more we can experience the grief, the more intense grief we can experience. So this is the Buddhist concept of love. So here, Buddhist non-attachment. So the Buddha never recommend that, we have to cut off love, or we have to cut off our relationship with the family members, we have to cut off our relationship with our co-workers or the people in our society. No, not in that way. The Buddhism does not recommend it. There's this kind of anti-relationships, or the Buddha never suggests, you should not care your mother or your father. No, not in that way. The Buddha always encouraged to care the people around us, to love around us. So it suggests the subjective quality of being free from mental physician. The thing is, we need to love, we need to care the people around us without metaphysication, without kind of identification. This is my mother, this is my father, this is my husband, this is my wife. As long as the more you have metaphysication, the more you have these kinds of identity, then you might have grief after the loss of those people. So having a close relationship is not important, but to love each other with less or no attachment is more important. So in brief, we don't need to stop loving others. You should not misunderstand that. We should love the people, but we need to know how to love them. And we need to know the Buddhist way of loving each other. So there are, we have different types of loving, like metta. We can love with metta. We can care the people with garuna, compassionate love. Or we can deal with the people, we can communicate with the people with the mudita, the appreciative joy. So these are the types of loves, or those are not involved attachment. So these are the types of loves in Buddhism. Okay, so here we have 3 parts involved in a grieving process. If we look at our grieving process, then there are 3 parts: loved one, loved, and lost. So loved one might be a person or a thing. For example, a person. So we for example, we attach our mother, for example, mother, or maybe husband or wife. So we wrongly perceive and attach 5 aggregates. So the body of our loved one involves 5 aggregates, or nama and rupa, right? Mind and matter only. But we perceive that, oh, this is my mother, this is my husband, this is my wife. We name it, we label it. Then loved. The Buddhism does not regard attachment-based love is the best form. So Buddha never recommend attachment-based love. So one does not need to cut off the relationship, but need to love other without craving or less craving or attachment. So this is the way how to love, the Buddhist way of how to love. And loss is not the primary cause. That is just a trigger to generate grief. So in Buddhist psychology, these are 3 main points I like to convey tonight. 3 messages. First is grief is common to all ordinary beings. So no problem. If you have sadness, if you have grief, if you cry over the loss of your family member, no problem. This is common to all of us. You are not alone. But less attachment in your mind can help to experience less intensity of grief. So if you don't want to experience grief, then you should not have too much attachment. You should not have strong attachment. That you need to be careful. Grief doesn't matter, but you try to reduce your attachment. That's the matter. And with complete non-attachment, one can completely free from grief, soka, and can have the real happiness. So we need, in daily life, we need to practice to reduce our attachment. Try to check your mind, try to check yourself all the time, or maybe as possible as you can. Am I loving too much? Am I loving with strong attachment, or am I grasping too much, grasping strongly a person or a thing like that? Okay, so here, let me close that. So I like to argue that the rule of craving or attachment is more important than the loss of the loved one in a grieving process. So we must have the knowledge how to love, and we have to practice to reduce the attachment. It's really important in the understanding, Buddhist understanding of grieving or to stop grief. This is really important that we should practice. So in this Dhamma talk, and I like to suggest you all two main things. First, please try to reduce attachment towards the people around you or the properties, the things around you. And please try to reduce the expectations or the judgments and control. You try to control towards those people around you. Maybe you try to control your husband or your wife or your children or your employees or your friends. So unknowingly, we have expectations, we have controls, we have judgments towards them while we are living with them in our daily life, either at home or at work. So this is the thing. Next, please try to learn how to love the people and the things around us by practicing Buddhist way of love, Buddhist way of loving, such as Metta, so love with unconditioned love, pure love, without expectation. It's just giving, not taking. Metta is just giving, just sharing our happiness or our desire, our willingness to see their success. So there's no expectation. So this is pure love. And the next, Karuna, so love with understanding. They are suffering, dukkha, and willingness to help them. Willingness and desire to release their suffering. And the third, mudita, so love with an appreciation for their success and their well-being. So these are the very qualified love that we can learn in the Buddhism. So by developing these kinds of Buddhist love, we can be happy and also mentally healthy, and we can cope with negative emotions such as stress, anxiety, or sadness, or grief, or even depression, or loneliness, or fear. So we can cope with those things if we try to change our way of loving. We practice metta, we practice karuna, we practice mudita in our daily life, so we can be happy, really happy. So our family member will be happy. If we are happy, they will be happy. So we can build a happy home or happy office like that. Okay, so this is the end of my talk. And I hope you enjoy this talk and you can learn something out of it. And may you all be, I wish, may you all be free from fear, sadness, or grief, depression. So may you all be happy and healthy in your daily life. Sabbe tiyo vivachantu sokoroko vinasatu nate bhavantantaraya sukhiti ka yukto bhava Bivadana silesa nesa ota pachayino sattaro dhamma vatanti ayuvano sukhambala sadhu sadhu sadhu.
Thank you, Sayalay. I think that is a very interesting topic that you spoke about. Just before we end, there is one question from the audience. Would you like to take this opportunity to answer that question? I put it onto the screen, yeah?
Okay. Is it correct that what you're trying to teach is it is okay to love? Yes, of course. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right, Calvin. What I'm trying to tell you tonight is okay, it's okay to love, but we should be very careful not to grasp or not to attach. So we can love with the compassionate love, or we can love them with metta, is without grasping, without expectation. Because, for example, you may have some experiences in daily life. A mother try to teach to a son with metta. It seems metta, yeah, because she wants her son to be successful in a class, for example. But the son does not obey. Then her metta, her love, is turned, changed into dosa, anger. Why you don't understand to me? Why you don't listen to me? You should do like this. You should not do like that. Something like that. So metta is changed into dosa. So because of attachment, she's trying to attach. She attached her son, and so this metta and dosa or loba are really slightly what to call. We can have these kinds of things very quickly in a short time, so we should be very careful. So that's correct. What I mean is, it is okay to love, but please love with compassion, please love with loving kindness and appreciative joy, not with attachment, not with grasping, not with expectation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayalay. I hope Brother Calvin is satisfied with that answer. I don't see any more questions from the audience, Sayalay. So with that, we've come to the end of this evening's Dhamma sharing with Sayalay Panna. And on behalf of the Committee of Management and the monks of the Buddhist Mahavihara, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Sayalay, for your time and patience in joining us for the first time here at the Buddhist Mahavihara's Dhammadana series. And we would like to see you, if possible, more times here, if time permits. We'd like to invite you to come and do your Dhamma sharing with us. And to the sponsors for this evening's Dhamma sharing, thank you for your kind sponsorship. To the viewers, we had many this evening compared to other evenings. We have quite a number of new viewers, I think, who joined us here at the Dhammadana series. So we look forward to more sharings with Sayalay Panna. And with that, let me wish you a pleasant evening and a Sukhi Hotu.
Thank you very much. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.